Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Oh, and here we are live. Just found you. I just found us actually on the phone. And, hopefully enough of you got a message that we are going live. So here we are.
And there she is. So it is showing up on EEARTS. We posted a notice just a few moments ago on Evolutionary, but we don't see anybody in here. Okay, I see 6 concurrent viewers coming. The sassy one's in the house.
She's always testing stuff, always pushing the boundaries, pushing the envelope, causing problems, always. So hopefully you guys are doing well today. Oh, there's Miss Karmadoc. There she is. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and this talk is because of Karmadoc.
Isn't that wonderful? We got inspiration all over the place.
We do. And it's a big subject, and it can be intimidating for sure.
Very intimidating. So Mike's probably gonna lead this whole thing all the way through, because I don't know. I throw my 2 cents in here and there, but I don't understand the nitty gritty stuff. Usually I come out with the big picture of stuff, and he comes in and he fills in the finer details. So, yep.
Yeah, most definitely it is. Just what are we? That's like such a huge question. Exactly what are we? That's the question that's perplexed the greatest minds for forever, for eons.
I know. And, I think there's a lot of answers out there. They're just hidden from us, and they're put in places where you might not have time to look, you might not think to look, and a lot of this stuff is coming out more and more, which is nice, but then they're doing this cyber burning, so we can't find things out as well as often, but we're digging them up.
Yeah, and you keep moving forward, so it's looking like we are really being suppressed this time.
Yeah.
But we could feel it, and we were actually watching the numbers go backwards, which they've done before in the past. When you get close to a certain level, like when Evolutionary was getting close to 66,000, they just held it off for like 6 months. And now, with this channel, it's getting close to 11,000, and now they're starting to roll it backwards.
Right. It says we lost 8 subscribers.
Yeah, overnight. So Karmadoc's saying they found a Kubrick-style monolith in Utah. That's really interesting. Going to have to look up and learn something about that. The whole reality that we find ourselves in is one that has been kind of scripted and put together. And as we are finding more and more out, we realize that it's not exactly what we've been told, not exactly what we have thought it was. And Judy K's in the house, and there's Heading Outside and Dream Warrior. Good to see you guys.
Great to see you guys. I don't know, maybe we changed it. Maybe we shouldn't have changed that one setting to put it on ultra slow for the chat to come in. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
I've had it on ultra low once before.
Yeah, but it's great to see you guys. We got people bleeding in, as you guys always do. Thank you so much for joining us.
Listen for Visions in the house. Good to see you as well. And they're spraying again today a lot. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people. Maria, good to see you. Maria Brito in the house. Much love. Thank you guys for being part of our family here and sticking with us through these very, very interesting times. I think that's going to get very interesting as we come to the end of November.
Mm-hmm. I do. Where are they spraying where you guys are at? Because it's been pretty thick here for 2-3 days? Yeah, 2 or 3 days, maybe even 4. And we both woke up one morning with a headache. And we don't normally get headaches either. But we are now, and it makes you wonder, what are they putting in that stuff?
Exactly. And so we're going to be heading out for a little while. I'm not sure how long. So I wanted to get this live in and, cover a few things because we may have limited ability to upload for a couple of days as we'll be on the road and out in the woods, out in some remote areas again, which we'll do some videos, and then when we're able to upload them, we'll upload. And of course, now it's going to start buffering. But okay, Judy says no spraying today, and Maria says both son and daughter both have headaches lately. Yeah, Dream Warrior says every day here, nonstop. And heading outside, yep, up in New Hampshire as well. Shane's over in East Tennessee, a lot of spraying in the Appalachians. Yeah, one of our really good friends is over in East Tennessee as well, and he's trying to build a homestead right now, southeast of Knoxville. And Garmadoc says every morning headaches. Yeah, I think it's what they're putting in the air. Agneta, good to see you. Colorado 420. Judy's had headaches for 4 months now.
Oh,
no. And if there's anybody I haven't gotten back to, we're going to try to catch up, make sure we're all caught up with emails and stuff. Mm-hmm. I do think there's a couple we haven't responded to yet now that I think about it, so we will. So what I wanted to start with, and the question is, what is consciousness itself? I mean, well, what is life? We could even go and take it more basic and say, what is life? Well, if we're looking at it from a quantum mechanics aspect of it, it's very different than perhaps what we grew up thinking. And when you look at things, there's most definitely a holographic nature to the universe. There's a fractal nature to the universe. It's the old as above, so below, as within, so without. There's a pattern, and we could even, look at it more of there's programming to this universe, to this perhaps simulation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, there is an underlying pattern to everything, and I have a really interesting tuning fork, and it's the golden ratios. So when I do work on people, I repattern their energy field as if it were the day that they were born, and I put it back to perfection. So everything has this magnificent, beautiful pattern to it.
So when we look at like orbs, and orbs, got to be a big topic some years ago. And, I did an investigation, and I was part of a paranormal research group for about 2.5, 3 years. A lot of fun. This was when I lived in South Carolina. But we investigated a very haunted place and got so many of these orb photos, and you could see faces in them so much of the time, actual faces in these things. And so what are they? Well, they're consciousness. They are consciousness. And, as this is saying, orbs, spirit orbs, energy, or as I like to call them at times, sparks of light. They could be anything. They could be a loved one, friends, spirit guides. They could be, different angelic beings. And, the angelic realm is very large. Fairies, angels, archangels, ascended masters. Any of these points of consciousness can appear as an orb, and we might actually view it as if that is really more of our natural state when we're not in the body.
Mm-hmm. Like a lot of times when I dream I'm actually an orb, and I'm haunting a mansion. It's always the same mansion, and I know that I'm haunting it. So that's really curious. And I do have quite a few pictures of orbs. And some of them have the funniest faces. They look like fish. Some of them have like people's faces in them. And we even have a friend, Mike has a friend, what's her name? Allison, who does these really beautiful things with water and crystals in a bowl. And she mixes the water, takes pictures of it, and it turns out there's all these faces in there. So you can almost see them. They kind of look like if you guys have ever seen like a 3D ultrasound in the water when the baby's in the womb. That's what these pictures look like. They're so real looking. It's incredible.
It is. There's different techniques you could use to take photographs like that and to, connect to these beings on the other realm. And it's such an injustice that's done by the conditioning that we've had through, ultimately through the Catholic Church and then on down through other churches over time, to view everything as being demonic if it's not just regular humans, not God or not a quote-unquote angel. Then it could be a fallen angel. It could be all demons. And that's how they've gotten us to shut ourselves down, to cut ourselves off from so many other beings that could educate us and share with us and actually benefit us in other ways. And so when we look at this, you see that this is consciousness itself. And so is this. This is consciousness as well. This is obviously on a much different scale. But this is why the stars, are thought to be gods. They are entities. They are beings. They are grand beings, very high up on the consciousness scale. And everything, life feeds off life, and it takes energy to sustain energy. But see, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. And so consciousness is energy. And we're going to get into that more. And obviously something like our sun is going to be a very benevolent energy because it's giving life to just countless beings.
Well, it's us. They talk about I don't know about you guys, but when I was in high school, they only taught about the 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, gas. And then they kind of left out plasma, or at least they didn't cover it where I went to school. And the sun is made of plasma, and our bodies are just an extremely dense form of plasma. And there's been stories and studies of people who have gone without eating and drinking and just using the sun as energy. And I can see, because we are plasma, the sun is plasma, they must have some kind of a mechanism within them to just use the sun for their sustenance, if I said that right.
For sure. Sun gazing, as well as, the whole concept of being a breatharian, because prana, life force, vril, is all around us, everywhere. And we couldn't exist without it. These bodies are animated by it. But yet, all the energy, not all, but, such a great part of energy comes from the sun and nourishes us indirectly. Plants photosynthesis. They use photosynthesis to sustain themselves. And then if we eat the plants, we're taking in that energy from the sun that's been transmuted into the plant. And then if we're eating animals that ate plants, then we're taking it in that way too. But there is also the thought that food actually, and too much food, is one of the things that speeds up aging, as we've talked about as well. So Barbara Brennan is a very, very gifted psychic and healer. And she can see many layers to the aura. And so, obviously there's the physical body. Then when we can see the aura, we're seeing different layers. They're like Russian dolls, layered upon each other, each one of the different layers of the body. There's obviously the physical in the center, and then we have the etheric, and we have the astral, and then we have, the mental and the emotional, and very, very, various spiritual ones. We are connected to the earth, as you see here, the Hara point, which is like your lower Dantian point. We are connected and rooted to both the earth and then also to the heavens. And we would call this a Taiji pole in QiGong. It goes right through the center. And if we're talking yoga, if we're talking Vedic terms, then we're looking at the Sushumna connecting us fully to both the earth and the heavens. And whenever I turn on the energy, when we're working on people and focus, it's like it automatically comes rushing in from both sides. And then you see we have a core star in us as well. So just like the sun shines, so do we. And that's what you're looking at when we're looking at that reflection, that as above, so below.
Yes, very much so. And there's just so many parallels, as far as the universe is concerned, and then our bodies are concerned. You can just look at everything, and really, the deeper you look, the more difficult it is to be able to tell where things stop and where things start. We are that much part of each other, and that's something that we're really missing in this society, is we don't understand that we are very much just one.
Yeah, and so you're tempting me to jump ahead a little bit, which no, it's okay, which I will. I'll bring this over here, and many of you guys might have already read this. This is the PDF for The Field, which is by Lynn McTaggart. Great book. I read it many years ago. And it's all about that energy field. And, here we are in the middle of the field. And we could understand it a lot easier now that we have quantum physics. And we talked about particles and waves. And when the observer is observing, all of a sudden things take form. Isn't that interesting, right? And isn't that very holographic? It's all dependent on consciousness. And interesting. Sassy must be having a dream, because I'm talking about this, and all of a sudden her tail's wagging as she's sleeping. So yeah, this is a great book, and other people after she made this book, David Wolcott came out with the Source Field Investigations, real thick, good book, lots of detail. And then Greg Braden had one too, and I forget how he termed it, but again, it's all about the field. And in the East, we've always understood this. We've always understood this. This is, part of Buddhist philosophy, Hindu philosophy, Jain philosophy. It's all basically the mind. It's all about the mind. And so we could also go into the Gnostic text, and we could go into Hermeticism and the Kabbalah and see the reflections of it as well. So this is the Sri Yantra, and Sri or Shreem is always referring to the divine feminine principle. And the divine feminine principle is that principle which is manifestation.
Mm-hmm. Right. It is the manifest. So this is where things are kind of different, because here in the West, we're always just taught about the Father and Son and the Holy Ghost, that Trinity. But if you look a little bit further into other belief systems, it's all about the feminine, because the feminine is what brings life. And to them, she's like a god, because she does create the life, and she's very, very important. And it's just so curious how that's just so completely gone from the Western standpoint. Not only is it gone, it's like buried. And, women are thought of as less than.
When you meditate on this symbol, you can bring about activation of Kundalini. There's so much to this symbol. The symbol could pull you in. It could pull your consciousness in. And if you were to have a experience like many people have when they go to, say, Peru, and they go into a ceremony using something like ayahuasca, you can also get the same effects with psilocybin. And many people have. It's part of shamanism and the shamanic tradition, altering the consciousness. But you can also do this just through meditation with nothing else needed at all. And the Sri Yantra can totally trigger Kundalini. One of my good friends who's a Kundalini yoga teacher, hers was triggered by this and her guru. And it alters your consciousness on a permanent level. It's something that, once you know and have experienced, and again, it's knowing as in gnosis, where you have a direct experience, because you got to experience it. Until you experience this different level of consciousness, this expansion, you can only think about it. You can only kind of conceive it. You don't really know it. You need to have that gnosis, that experiential aspect to it. And that is what's missing from the fundamentalist point of view, is that gnosis. And, Gnosticism was driven underground, as well as that's why we have the Western mystery tradition that's hidden in the secret societies, and it's just been hidden, period. And, this is also why they're doing what they're doing right now with the censorship.
I know it's pretty bad, the censorship right now. So I guess we know we're hitting on something pretty important that people need to know and talk about, at least, for our soul growth, because that's what they're putting a damper on the most right now with all this external chaotic stuff that's going on outside in the world. They're kind of keeping people in a state of fear. And when people are in a state of fear, they're always looking to something else or somewhere else for answers. And then if you provide the answer, well, you're a hero. But you're not growing within. And that's the most important thing we can do right now, is take care of our traumas, do our shadow work on ourselves, heal other people. That's one way to actually raise the vibration, is to work on other people. So, and they just sort of sweep all of this under the carpet like it's not important.
So we can see so many different things in this. And, this pattern is a pattern that develops as your Merkaba comes in. And so this actual pattern, the Sri Yantra, develops inside of you and becomes your light body. And again, this is the as above, so below aspect of it. In Hermeticism, we use certain symbols, such as the triangle. The triangle can refer to the four different elements when it's placed in different positions, bottom down, bottom up, changing the positions will symbolize each of the four different elements. We can see the Star of David in this pattern too. And then we go into a three-dimensional pattern and get a dodecahedron. And, as well, we see the lotuses over here. The lotuses are the chakras. And so when we do Om Mane Padme Hum, we're talking about the divine jewel in the center of the lotus, and we're talking about developing the Merkaba and becoming a full multidimensional being that can travel into these other realms and has consciousness and interactions in these other realms of existence, which is something that we did have in the past and we are going to have again. It's developing in us right now. And it's just this knowledge of this field of the divine feminine that's all around us and activating it. And you can activate it through mantras. So, this is a fascinating guy. And we talked about one of his writings before, Dr. Here Rivera do Genio. And he is a PhD. This is a brilliant man. And Karmadoc read through and was reading his works and found them very, very deep. And I'll just throw the question out there to her. What do you think? Have you come to any conclusions on this? Because fascinating stuff, fascinating. Now, he talks here about the holographic pattern, tenets of the holographic pattern. Number one, consciousness is energy. Energy is consciousness. Okay, consciousness is energy and energy is consciousness. That statement right there changes things. So then we can look at electricity and say, wow, there's consciousness in there. There's life in there.
Well, yeah, our bodies are electric, and they do talk about how important it is to raise the vibration. Also you can use the term voltage. You raise your voltage and your body is able to receive and send more and more information, because we are like little mini antennas, and we are constantly receiving information from outside of us. And if everything is electric, you would want to raise your voltage so you can get more information in for yourself.
And then reality is a thought construction. That's huge. So what we perceive to be reality It's just a construct of our minds. If you ever think about it, really, do you ever see anything exactly the same as somebody else? You know how you could like look at something that happened, an event, even a painting, and we could see things in different ways. We could totally perceive some aspects of something that somebody else might not see at all. Then if we tell them about it, then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, oh yeah, I can see it. Or maybe they'll be like, no, I still don't see that.
Right. Our perception, changes from person to person. And you can just say, source chooses to experience itself in many different aspects. And that's just source, exploring.
It is. So thought is an attribute of consciousness, the filter through which consciousness manifests itself into the hologram of form. And again, it's different when we're in the body as to when we're in like an altered state, and perception changes. And our perception will be very different when we shed these bodies. And, and also depending on how we shed these bodies. Say, if you were able to achieve a rainbow body, like a Buddhist monk has, and tens of thousands of them have done it, as I was saying before in previous videos, they move their consciousness, they're focusing on the third eye, but then they move their consciousness up and out of the crown chakra. And so that takes them up into the higher realms of existence. Like and this is really, I think, pretty important to understand. If you are in a tough situation, okay, let's go back to just say that you were in somewhere in Europe in World War II, and there's like soldiers that come in and are taking people away. And maybe even they're lining people up and shooting them, like we've seen. The chances of your consciousness going out of their crown chakra or your third eye chakra are much, much less. These type of traumatic events, fear-based events, are going to pull you down towards the root chakra. And so they're also going to end up pulling you down into a lower state of existence, possibly even getting you stuck, which happens. Cindy is so gifted. And I could sense discarnates as well, and have seen some. But with her, it's just part of her life because she sees them all the time. They flock to us. And so often it's when somebody's had a traumatic ending of life. And think about it. Wars are such horrible things, horrible things in many different ways, not just because they're taking people out of their bodies, but they're also sending them on a path that's hard to overcome.
Right. If you die in a traumatic event, sometimes that trauma can actually stay in your energy field from one life to the next life, to the next life, to the next life. And that's, another thing that I work on people with is their ancestral river. So we can start to pull up those old traumas in the ancestral DNA, because our energy is what holds all these memories. And it's really important to work through those. So if you don't know what's happened, how could you possibly be able to process that information? And that's where, sound and frequency and all of these things, energy manipulation, that's where that comes in, and it can be very, very helpful.
Number 5, nothing is truly solid. It's not. Most things, when you get down to it, like your whole body is mostly vacuum when you get down to it. Hey, there's Joe. Dr. Joe's in the house. Good to see you. So, nothing is truly solid when you get down to it, as we know. Even if you look at an atom, and take an atom, it's really very much like a solar system, and the electrons are like the planets way out away from the neutron and the proton. That's the core, like the sun. It appears to be solid because of the movement, but it's not. All things are composed of consciousness. All things. Even the chair you're sitting on, even your shoes. Now that sounds crazy, But at the same time, as I was able to start to see life force around everything many, many years ago, in my early 20s, I noticed that it looked like the table was glowing. It looked like cars still were kind of glowing. So when you get down to it, again, everything is consciousness. So all things are composed of consciousness, and their apparent solidity is determined by the relationship between the consciousness observing the form and the consciousness of which the form is made.
Right. And somebody says here, whoever is doing this is very afraid. I've never seen a show so suppressed. Never, ever, ever. This is really ridiculous what they're doing. It's incredible. But, that's just really important, though, to know, because now we know we're truly, definitely onto something.
Yeah, they really do seem to pick on us a lot, but I guess it's because of what we're bringing across is not what they want to be brought across. And much love to everyone out there. They want us to be fearful. They want us to be full of fear because it keeps us in a lower vibrational loop. That's the bottom line. The fear will keep us trapped in this loop where they could use us over and over again. Use our consciousness, use our energy, and, use the loosh that they create from it. But if we understand, how reality really works, we can transcend it. We can totally transcend it. So when we look over here, human consciousness emerges through an order of dimensionalization, which sets the framework within which the interrelationships of consciousness can take place.
Yeah, well, that's like kind of above my head, over my head. It's above my pay grade.
So human consciousness emerges through an order of dimensionalization. There's different dimensions. So, right here, right now, we could view easily how we're operating on a 3D level, yet still our consciousness is still also spread out. We're still on the astral, and we're still going through the different layers. Like when we look at the layers to the aura, and you see those different layers, we're still acting on other dimensions. And there's an inner relationship of consciousness going on. So like yesterday and again today, in our meditation and mantras, we get very much in contact with the divine feminine, and can actually correspond. We can feel it. We can, like when I'm doing certain mantras, as soon as I'm getting into a groove, and it might just be after a few repetitions, I'll feel like somebody's sending energy in through my crown. So I know that I've connected. It's just like picking up the phone and saying, I'm going to dial Jesus. I'm going to dial Buddha. I'm going to dial Kuan Yin. And we do. And then they answer, so it's a matter of getting that contact. And again, when we look at these beings in the framework of ascended masters, devas, they are units of consciousness like we are. They're operating on a higher dimension. They can still affect and help us on this dimension. And there is that interrelationship of these dimensions that's going on. And there's a reflection between the sixth density and the third density. As we go up, like when we're sleeping, and you could say we're operating on the fourth density in the astral realm, it's actually of a higher vibrational state than here. You could change that reality much quicker than you could change the reality here. When we go up to fifth, then it's even quicker. And then at sixth, it's just instantaneous. And so, Cindy was connecting to Lakshmi, who has been with us for years now, and been blessing us in many different ways with understanding how things work. And, she appeared as if she was in her bedroom, just relaxing, but it was like a golden bed. But then she could just instantaneously think, no, I want to be out in the forest. And then boom, she's in the forest instantly. And then she could think, I want to be in a palace, and just change it. As we go up into those higher dimensions, we have greater control over our consciousness. So like right now, so many of us are tormented and tortured and would be very, very self-destructive if we had the ability to change reality instantaneously. It's a good thing that we don't in some cases, like when we have wild emotional swings. And that's why it's a progression as we gain control over ourselves, as we start to shift more into that higher self aspect that is residing more up in that 6D realm, and pull more of that into this vessel. Then we're able to, in a constructive way, change our own reality quicker.
I don't want to say a huge thank you to Agneta and Karma Doc. We really, really appreciate it. And all of your support in any way, shape, or form. Do the thumbs up. Make sure you've clicked the bell. Make sure you're subscribed. All of that support really matters these days. It's extremely important. And back to what Mike was talking about. When we work on people, I put people into alignment with higher self, and that's just giving them a vibrational frequency from where they're at to their higher self. And in a way, it really changes people's lives, because the decisions that they make, even though they might be really small decisions, it changes things because they're operating from a more clear place from their higher self to their self. And when you remove those blocks and those traumas, people are able to get more information from their higher self, and their higher self is able to get more information to them. It's all very, very interesting and curious, and it's all about the energy work, which is awesome.
And that's all about just focusing your consciousness, and getting more connected to the higher you, which is already up there, and it's just trying to send its frequency and energy to the you that's inhabiting these bodies right now, especially in this time when we are going to be tried and tested. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. We've gotten that clearly. And there is a personal reality. There's a consensus reality as well. And we have to recognize our power in manifesting as good a outcome for the benefits of all, or as many as possible. As we know in this world right now, this small group is trying to control everything, and it's starting to fall apart and crumble as they scramble to control. And thank you guys so much for your support again. So when we look into this, then we also see human perception of solidity and externalization is determined by oscillation rates between dimensionalized units of consciousness. And so again, we can talk about oscillation rates, and we could talk just basically about vibration and frequency. Mm-hmm. So again, if we allow ourselves to be tainted, pulled down by these lower vibes, if we allow ourselves to be angered, now angered to the point where we are not operating in our best interest or the best interest of the world in general, I think it's natural to feel anger when you recognize what's going on, and you recognize things are all about control and ultimately about greed and power. And it's a sad situation. Yet we have to kind of cultivate that Buddhist indifference, and not be pulled in. This is so critical, because if we allow ourselves to be pulled in, then we're getting pulled into the law of cause and effect and karma, which could end up coming back and biting us in the butt, so to speak.
Right. Everything is energy, and I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry it's buffering so bad. We really still appreciate your support. But yeah, all about the energy and the controllers. I think when you do realize who's controlling everything, you kind of, at least I start going within. I started to go within, and I started to understand that my response and my growth was far more important than me paying attention to too many things going on outside of me that I don't have control over. And when you get your energy straight and you strengthen your energy, you have more power, more influence, more pull than you realize. And that's another thing they keep from us.
The externalization of life, manifestation of matter, and individuation of identity are holographic projections of consciousness energy substance created through an intrinsic order of energetic relationships. And so, we are all individual units of consciousness in this big sea of consciousness. And so that's, a great question that comes up when you're, studying Buddhism, because in Buddhism, for instance, nirvana, moksha, liberation comes in the dissolving, in some ways, of the I, self. And so that could kind of sound kind of scary. And there's different thoughts in this as well. And, Buddha didn't really give us a completely clear answer on this, so to speak. It seems like he's left it kind of open for us to discover, because there are some that think that the I-ness goes away totally, and it's gone. And then there's others that believe that we maintain a sense of I-ness in the true self, more like the higher self that resides up on the highest dimensions, in the first dimensions that are manifesting downward from source. And you could look at like this right here with all the different concentric circles, and at the very center, you could look at it inside out, outside in. Either way, you could say that this is source, and then this is manifesting outwards towards the earth. Or you could look at it the other way too, in reality. But the point is that there is an interaction going on between all of us. And, at this level of consciousness, we are very aware of the separateness. That's easy. It's harder to see the unity in things.
Well, yeah, they take a lot of time and effort to teach us all about the separateness and what's outside of ourselves, and they teach us how to look outside of ourselves for all the answers, starting in preschool, kindergarten. They teach children to compartmentalize, and they even have the little boxes there. This is Joey's, this is Sally's, this is Sarah's. Everybody's very individual, and each one of you you have your own little toys and your own everything, which in some ways is really good, because we do want to encourage independence, and we do want people to kind of explore themselves and get to know themselves. But I think in our Western society, our education, it takes it a little too far.
So this might help. Humans observe as solid the frequency bands that exist one full dimensional spectrum below the frequency within which the individuated or collective consciousness is stationed. Thoughts?
Above my pay grade again.
Okay, well, view it this way. Those of you that have meditated before and gotten the feeling of being out of body, or somebody that maybe even had a near-death experience, you recognize that you can see everything that's going on in this reality. And like one of my friends, I have 3 friends that were clinically dead for periods of time, and one of them was for almost 35 minutes, toe tagged, was ready to go down to the morgue basically, and came back, but she saw everything going on. She saw her kids crying, she saw her family crying, she saw the nurses and the doctors all frantic. And so, there, in that sense, this is kind of what we're talking about. Now, right now, this seems solid to us. But really, our consciousness is not really right here. So we are beings that primarily, most of us have been just going between 3 and 4. as far as looking at the different densities, the different dimensions. We go through 3 and 4. Now, we can transcend sometimes. If we go into a deep meditative state, we might find ourselves moving upwards till we're heading towards that, 5D area. And then you have that experience of expansion and experience of, the fact that you are much greater than just this body, and even that starting to feel that sense of connectedness. And collectiveness as well. So as we rise up in ascension, when we get to, say, 4, the 4th density, and we're pushing the 5th density, when we're getting into these altered states of consciousness through our own spiritual work, then, the 4th density is going to appear to be very, very physical and real. And the same thing as we go on up and we are fully of 5D beings, say like the Pleiadians that we interact with, Laurel. Well, when you're shifting your consciousness and you see her, it looks like she's solid. It looks like the ship is solid.
Yeah, very much so. I see her solid dressed, her hair, everything I see inside the ship